Awesome. Let's get started. We'll call to order the Housing and Human Welfare Committee meeting. It is 6:40. Let's start with a roll call. Alderman Shandelmeyer.
Present.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Here.
Well, we also have President Ward 3, Alderwoman Rhonda Pendell Charles today. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Our last meeting was, really, 3/20/23?
So moved.
Okay, because the budget,
It was before
yeah.
budget.
Can I get approval of the,
So moved.
yeah, exactly. Can I get approval of the Housing and Human Welfare minutes from 3/20/23?
So moved.
Second. Awesome. All in favor? Aye. Next item on the agenda is appointments and appointments, starting with AP 1023 of the Education Commission appointment, Pamela Bukowski. But in her place is the ombudswoman, Hillary Raftovich.
Good evening, Hillary Raftovich, Boards and Commissions Coordinator, among other things. So tonight I'm here to speak to you about Pamela Bukowski. She is before you as an appointment, but she's sort of a reappointment. She served for many years on the Education Commission as a regular member. And then she served as a volunteer member for the last, I think, 5 years. She's been serving as a volunteer because there was not an at-large seat available for her because she moved. But now there is an at-large seat, so we'd like to reappoint her, put her back onto the Education Commission as a formal member. She has been involved with the group since they began, before they were even an official commission. And she has been both a teacher and parent in the system, and a volunteer throughout the Anne Arundel County Public School System. I highly recommend her for appointment.
And just quickly, you mentioned she's an at-large. Would you just mind giving us a composition of it? I know there's one seat for each ward, and then how many at-large seats
This
are there?
board has one for each ward and 2 at-large,
Two,
if I
okay.
remember correctly.
Okay, that's awesome. Any other questions for?
She spent her whole career in education. Yeah, her resume is incredible. She spent her whole career in education. She actually served as a youth minister as well. So she is definitely an asset to the board.
Absolutely. Alderman Shandelmeyer, anything to add, or
Nothing to add?
can I get a motion to move? Oh, we're not actually making an appointment. We'll just recommend favorably to the full council. And so actually I heard earlier today, our next council meeting will be June the 20th because,
12th, and then the 20th.
okay, June the 12th.
Yes.
So she'll be on the agenda on June 12th.
Yes.
Okay,
Monday
fantastic.
night.
No
Monday
problem.
night, right?
Yes, Monday night.
And then the next.
Awesome. So I'll make a motion to move favorably. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hillary.
Next item on the agenda is legislation, starting with O-1923, property tax credits for 911 specialists and public safety officers.
I keep thinking it's mine. Sorry. Sorry, I'm talking about.
So I'll just, have you all had the chance to check out the staff report, et cetera?
Yeah, we had it in front of finance this morning.
Oh, okay, really? Awesome,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Were there any, if I would have known, I would have attended. Were there any recommendations from the finance committee?
It was, there was confusion because apparently it was brought up at rules. There was confusion on why we didn't increase the opportunity, and we made it clear that we had to match the state legislation, but it does. There was misinterpretation that it was just for 911 responders, but it does include.
The dispatchers.
Yeah.
I actually don't think, and
Cynthia
you
can help us
provided,
with this.
yes, Cynthia, you provided us with a very detailed
Yeah.
email, actually.
Well, it's her review of the bill in front of the.
Yeah, let's try to find that really quickly. Because, yeah, you're right, we were tied to, a state bill that had already been passed that allowed us to, it was basically enabling legislation.
Right.
And so that's why we could not expand. 2,500 was the maximum amount that we could impose.
But there was confusion about the definition, that it seemed like it was limited, and it really wasn't. You might want to say.
Well, it says, yeah. 019 uses the state definition of 911 specialist and public safety officer. The legislation includes the job titles that correspond to the state definition. It applies to specialists and officers who live in the city of Annapolis. And so the question to the police department then would be, and I think they actually provide that in the fiscal report, based on current employee data and property information from the 2023 tax rolls, there are 8 employees who qualify for the credit, and the city would lose approximately $16,800 in annual revenue. And so I feel that most of the questions or concerns that they may have had are addressed here. No?
Yeah, yeah, we, Alderwoman Finlayson was satisfied when we pointed her to the legislative summary prepared by Cynthia Reuter, where it has a little snapshot of the state law, and then how the 911 specialists, police communication operators 1 and 2, and police communication managers, et cetera, public safety officers, Annapolis Fire Department firefighters, EMTs, and police officers are included.
So really
And
covering the whole
Jody
gamut.
has a handle on this because she knows Director Dickinson knew how many, correct?
Which is
that
8,
were-
yeah. But the goal is that also if legislation like this passes, that, hopefully would enthuse others to move into the city. That's the hope.
That's what I said at the meeting. I said the secondary objective of this was to have it as a perk for police and fire to come to the city of Annapolis. It's the next best thing we could do to workforce housing, not to bring up a sore subject, but.
Seriously, no, I think it's a small step. When I initially proposed this legislation last year, I tried to include Anne Arundel County Public Schools employees that reside in the city of Annapolis. But obviously, we went from that with public safety to now just, the specialist according to the state law. But still, I think it's a great step. Alderman Shandemeyer, do you have any questions or concerns?
The one thing that was brought up in the rules hearing yesterday, along with that, was like, why aren't we expanding it to all other city employees?
Well, yeah, I think you might have stepped out when we just answered that because we're tied to the state.
I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Good enough bill. It's a small step forward, but we're trying lots of small steps, and hopefully that gets some things done. Cover journey and whatnot.
If we have any, feedback from the other committees, I'm sure that they will pass that along at some point. So we're moving, we're recommending favorably to the full council at this point. Does it need to go back for public safety, for public testimony once we, okay, because no amendments were awesome. So I'll make a motion to recommend 1923 favorably to the full council.
So moved. Or you made the motion, so I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 02123, landlord-tenant relations, for the purpose of requiring a landlord to pay a tenant relocation payment if the tenant's housing is condemned as unfit for human habitation under certain circumstances. So we got a detailed letter from a lobbyist today.
It's a representative from the multifamily council, multi-housing council here. We do have a representative from.
Well, I'm not doing public testimony,
Okay.
but, well, you know what, we could do public testimony if you like, because you did submit.
Entirely up to you.
Yeah, you can come forward if you like.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't state her name.
Yeah, just state your name.
Sure.
Yeah, and
Lauren Graziano here. There we go. All right, now we're in business. Good evening, everyone. Lauren Graziano for the Maryland Multi-Housing Association. As you've stated, you do have a copy of our written testimony, and I encourage you to take a look at it. But in a nutshell, as we were reviewing this piece of legislation, we issue spotted a few areas where there's potentially some frustration with other areas of existing law, particularly at the state and county levels. There's other mechanisms we use at present to make tenants whole in the event that they are living in uninhabitable conditions. The one mechanism we drive folks to is the rent escrow statute. We encourage them to utilize that. And then the county also has its own rental licensing regime, which is intended to protect against essentially slumlords, right? That's our way of certifying that people are putting up properties that are in habitable conditions, and that also has its own framework and process for reporting when they are not up to snuff under the regulatory framework. And so just there's sort of some questions about how we would read these things together, and exhaustion of remedies, and which one the district court would be compelled to look at, and how those things are synthesized.
So I definitely appreciate the testimony, and I did read it in its entirety. And so what I would hope that, because obviously, you know, there are the rent escrow, and I obviously knew about. I was not familiar though with the County Code 1110-102, and so I overlooked that as well. But I don't think the existing remedies are currently working. Otherwise, we would not have probably proposed this, just because we have had significant feedback from constituents regarding their housing conditions, lack of follow through from property management, miscommunication, and also lack of education on the part of the tenant as well. And so I definitely would like, at some point, I was thinking that myself, the legislative policy analysis, and our city attorney who works with us, Joel Braithwaite, who works with the Housing and Human Welfare Committee, could meet with you to go over your concerns and flesh out any existing problems within the legislation. I mean, because I do think there are some things that were brought forward that are not addressed in state law that we are familiar with, at least that when we were overlooking, or the county law. For example, there are no transportation clauses or transportation relocation or process for transportation reimbursement. So if you live in a property now and it's condemned or whatever, and the landlord has to move you, and say they're moving you out to Riva Road, likely because that's the cheapest hotel at the extended stay. So your entire family's moving there, and your kid that goes to Tyler Heights Elementary School is now, or does not now have transportation to the school. And so you're paying Lyft expenses or cab expenses or bus fare for your child to get back and forth to school for however long you're displaced. So little things like that are overlooked that I think that we were hoping to address with this legislation. That's one, a definite amendment we'll be making. I think there are further concerns about property that's just guarded due to, you know, conditions of the home and stuff like that. And I think all of those things, you would be helpful in helping us identify if there are already existing remedies in place. And I don't want you to think that this is, again, us trying to bring the hammer down, but just trying to help our constituents out, really.
Of course, of course.
Any other questions at all?
The right of first refusal, isn't that already the law, or am I mistaken? I was curious about that.
So what I wanted to do, and I noticed that change, or I noticed that here too, when I proposed the right of first refusal, it was not for the tenant return. It was actually for the, or what I intended, it was for the right of first refusal for the relocation unit. Because unfortunately, Admiral Oaks is here, I have to, you know, just use that example. We had incidents last year where a person's unit was deemed inhabitable, and then they were moved to either a unit that was also inhabitable, or moved to hotels that, you know, had significant issues. We all seen those images, blood, et cetera, and all that stuff. And I think the tenant should have the, no, you're totally fine. I think a tenant should have, you know, a right or a say into where they're being, you know, moved, you know, throughout the relocation process. And I think that's just something that we didn't address last year. Alderman?
I'm okay, yeah.
So can we coordinate a meeting then with you?
I was gonna say, it sounds like a to be continued.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Just because, I mean, I didn't intend for us to move forward with it today, but I especially didn't once I seen your testimony, and I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, of course. It's a conversation starter.
Yeah. So what we'll do is postpone 02123 until our next Housing and Human Welfare meeting, which will be in July at this point, because we will be at MML, and then the 19th is Juneteenth. And so we'll be working, behind the scenes in the meantime. I'll try to get a meeting coordinated with Ms. Ruder, as with you as well. July 17th. Awesome. So we'll postpone 02123 until July 17th. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Oh, can I get a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item on our agenda is general discussion, ID 8923, Admiral Oaks trash and trash/garbage and quality of life issues. So if you all wanted to come up to the table, bring up some extra chairs if you need to, and just be sure that when you sit down that the mics, the green light, yeah, if you want to speak, that the green light's on. And just for the purposes of our camera crew and the recordings, just state, Ms. Filo, how you doing again? Just state your name and no address, because none of you are city residents, so your name and workplace.
All right, I'll start. I'm Gail Philo. I'm the president of Enterprise Residential.
My name is Lavi De Leon. I'm the property manager of Amara Oaks.
I'm Jennifer Vasquez. I'm the assistant property manager at Admire Oaks.
Kevin C. Wright, Vice President, Enterprise.
Awesome, thank you so much. And so, obviously we got a history going at this point with the committee, but all in good effort and good faith, for our constituents. I think we met last November, if I'm not mistaken. It was either November or October.
It was November.
November, okay, yeah, just before we went on break. And we discussed a number of issues. Since then, they've had inspections, and they've had a number of changes on the property. We did send out some questions beforehand. I think everybody's received them. So let's jump straight into that. But first, let me allow Alderwoman Pendell Charles to make comment as the property is in your ward, and this was of significant concern to you.
Thank you, Chairman Gay. And good evening to everyone. I think a little background with this situation is necessary. Is that Mr. Nee in the back? Thank you. Anyway, as you all know, I've lived in parole. I've lived in this area all my life, and my family's been here since the Civil War. Anyway, I've been on the council almost 10 years, and over that period of time, I regularly spot check, drive through, walk through the Admiral Oaks community. And I don't always necessarily pay attention to the name of the management company. I just see the faces. And it was getting to the point where I was seeing different faces all of the time. I have a lot of relatives, friends, schoolmates, classmates over there. So I was getting information that things just weren't done in decency and in order. And so as time went on, they've had some good property managers. There was one property manager, not from your establishment, who wouldn't even speak to me. So it's run the gamut. And so I've been attuned to what was going on. And so more and more was happening that I was really disturbed about. So back in October, they had the inspections for 4 days, and I decided to accompany our inspectors there. I did not go in anyone's unit unless they asked, and there were only 2 people who did. I stood on the sidewalk, I listened to what was going on. And at that time, I do believe out of 150-some units, it might have only been less than 4 that had some violation. And I was not happy with that situation. Over time, I've gotten emails and calls and texts, and people flagged me down to tell me what was going on in Admiral Oaks. And that's why I accompanied the inspectors over there. As time went on, there was a community meeting, I do believe, sometime after that, and there was a litany of items in which we had discussed where there would be some changes made and some things to do, newsletters and things of that sort. And so I thought we were on the right track. I met Ms. Lavi over there with Ms. Princess, and I was very impressed. Then on Good Friday, I got a call from a resident that that the garbage and trash had not been picked up. Instead of taking someone's word for it, I went there and observed it myself. And there was, I think, 6 or 8 containers that were totally full on a Good Friday.
Do you want the images now, or
Yes,
could we?
They're on the laptop right
on the
there.
laptop.
Press the
Can you?
arrow as if it's a slideshow. Or the space.
Is that set up, or?
Yeah, it's set up.
Okay.
Letting them,
Yeah, I'll get it together.
letting them show.
We're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I took these photos myself, and you can, I think there were 4 photos. I think Ms. Jackson is gonna assist.
That's 2. It's actually 5.
5 photos.
That's 2. 3. Oh, there you go.
And I was appalled. It was Good Friday. Obviously, no trash company was gonna come out until Monday. I sent an email around 6 o'clock on Good Friday and indicated that this needed to be cleaned up within 24 hours. And my understanding was I received additional photos, and I got feedback from the residents and indicated that it was done. And my thought was, no one should have to live like this. If it's Easter, and that's really not the point. You might have company over, I'm sure rodents and all sorts of things running around when you have that much. I know you've indicated that it's supposed to be picked up 4 or 5 days a week. That seems like more than 4 or 5 days of pickup during the week. So I spoke with the chair of our Housing and Human Welfare Standing Committee that we needed to come back again to talk about this. I was just beside myself when I saw this. I wanted to cry, to be quite honest, because no one should have to live like this. And I would assume normally that the trash wouldn't be picked up again till Monday. So everybody's got their Easter food going and that sort of thing. So this would probably be much worse by Monday. And it was done on Saturday, and I was pleased with that. But I thought at this point that we needed to come back again to just set the record straight and to be quite honest and blunt as to what is expected on our properties in our city. And so I indicated that I would be derelict in my duties if I did not bring this matter to your attention again. I have, like I said, relatives, friends, classmates, schoolmates. I meet them in the grocery store, in the post office. I had to do something. And even if I didn't see that or hear that, I had to do something. And so therefore, we asked that the questions be generated for today, and Alderman Gay, you can certainly go ahead. The other thing I want to mention concerning the mold especially, I was so concerned about this. I know that the elementary school children in Admiral Oaks attend Rolling Nose Elementary School, and I met with Miss Becky Truly, who's the principal, back in December, to let her know that if she saw any untoward behaviors or that sort of thing in the children that lived in Admiral Oaks, that to be concerned, and that she would know exactly what was going on in that community. So I was that concerned as a retired equity officer with the school system. I felt like I needed to do that as well because I was that concerned. It was right before Christmas, and she was happy that I brought that to her attention. So anyway, Alderman Gay, you received the questions as well as I did. And I think it's worth going over.
Of
We
course,
need
let's do.
Yes, certainly.
One or two things really quick. Let's start with the trash. Let's allow them the opportunity to respond on that, and then we'll jump right into the questions. And so that is question number 5. And so if you just want to, obviously it's written down, but please expand for the general public on your pickup days, the porter and bulk trash pickup, et cetera.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having us this evening. We definitely owned the point that there was a mix-up with the trash company on holiday weekend. I
don't think your mic is on, I'm sorry.
It's on.
Oh, okay.
Let me move it over some. Better? Better?
Yeah, you gotta get.
All right. Better?
Yeah.
All right. So no, we own the fact that on that holiday weekend, we did have an issue with our vendor. We won't go into names, although it's kind of on the picture right there, but, and they did come out on Saturday after the pictures came, and we sent additional pictures back to that. That being said, we totally agree with Ms. Pendel in reference to how residents should live. We feel like we wouldn't want to see that at our house or an apartment that we live in, so we don't want to see it for anybody else. So we totally agree with where you're coming from like that, and we really don't have a rebuttal to that part. That being said, as we answered in the questions, we do have pickup 6 days a week. Bulk trash is twice a month. And we also have a porter that works on the property, because there are times where we may just have an abundance of trash, where we have the porter who will walk around, push it down on the top, kick it in. I think we've all been there with things we might have had to do with trash cans and things as kids, just to make sure that it's neat and so the company actually gets there. So again, Ms. Pendel, we don't make any excuse. We don't want to just sit here and blame the company. They missed a pickup. We obviously got in touch with them immediately after all of the pictures and things came out, and we had a special pickup handled that Saturday. As we went forward, we have not seen or had any issues as we move forward from that time. So I think we're proud to say that.
Of course, Alderwoman Tierney.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for.
How are you? Good evening.
Good. Could you explain to me what the trash policy is? I'm a tenant. Do I put it in a common area? Do I go directly to the dumpster? Could you explain what that process is?
Yeah, our expectation is that our tenants go straight to the dumpster.
Oh, okay.
I think we are all realistic that doesn't always happen. I'll tread lightly on that response, but the goal is that every tenant will walk their trash to the dumpster and actually put it in the dumpster. I think we're realistic enough to know that doesn't always happen, which is why we have the porter.
And I think that question was asked because we have a number of properties in the city where you sit your trash at your door, and somebody comes, picks it up, and they actually take it to the dumpster for you. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's a paid service.
Yeah.
That our residents quite simply can't afford. Because it's something that it's particularly at luxury properties where that would happen. And it's an optional service. Yeah.
How many? And I should know. I actually, full disclosure, I lived in Emerald, so everybody knows this. When I first moved to Annapolis, so how many dumpster locations are on the property?
Bobby?
We have 6, but before, I will apologize to Ms. Pendel. The day that the situation with the trash happened, in the morning before the pictures were taken, we already had made some phone calls regarding the issue, because one thing that we do in the morning with my meeting supervisor is to supervise the property. So we feel kind of like, we were working on respect of the trash during that morning of the pictures that were taken. So we have 6 dumpster area where all of them has 2 dumpster throughout the whole property.
Awesome.
So 12 dumpsters throughout the entire property.
Yeah.
For 159 units.
Yeah. And probably like every other community in our city, you are facing the problems of overcrowding. So
And
that
another
159 is probably like 300 plus, individual residents. So yeah, the Alderwoman.
Yeah, I took photographs of 8, and they all look like this.
Yeah.
8 different containers.
That morning before you went to the property, so we were addressing the situation. So it was a work in progress situation. We were aware of what would happen in the property.
And so, and I feel, just so that we can move off of the trash issue, I feel comfortable, and I'm not the older person of that ward, and so I will, but I just feel comfortable here knowing that at least there is some sort of remedy in place for the trash issue. And that it was responded to almost immediately, you know, within
24 hours.
Exactly, it was responded to, and so I think that's important. Nonetheless, though, we don't want a rodent problem, and we also just don't want our neighborhoods to, you know, suffer from a lack of quality, and so I appreciate you bringing that issue for us. So let's move on to the other questions. Do you want to?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at a map of y'all's neighborhood complex. It's a circle. Do you have, so you say you have 12 dumpsters per, for the property as a total, 159 units. What's like the location breakdown? Are they spaced pretty evenly apart? Are there some areas that are a little farther, so we get a little more like issue with someone just leaving stuff around, or?
Well, so as soon as you enter the property, there is one located. So that's the first one for the main entrance of the property. Then you will have one located next to the office. So we have 2 dumpsters located by the office, where you have those 2 areas assigned to the resident, and you have 3 in the back.
Okay. And yeah, I appreciate you guys coming in to address this. And I've had my waste management company in my neighborhood skip a day. It's annoying, and it seemed like you guys had a pretty decent plan going. So
Alderwoman?
I
Yeah, just
appreciate
real
it.
quickly, I know that you're saying that, you know, what the tenant can't afford, but I would think the management company might look at, what's driving this overage is the fact that the cardboard isn't broken down, that you're not recycling, you don't have a dedicated dumpster for cardboard. Have you thought of doing that? You know, having a dedicated dumpster for cardboard? I mean, anyone looking at this, would say, yikes, so much for recycling. But again, just to prevent something like this, I've seen, you know, many apartments in DC, and I don't know what yours is like, Brooks, but there's a dedicated dumpster for cardboard or recycling. Have you thought about that? Or are you saying that would trickle down to the tenant's cost?
Well, that can be, and we can implement that to have a recycling in our property. That's something that we can add to our location. But also another thing that we face in the location is that we have so many traffic of people dumping trash that don't live in the property. So that's another thing that we cannot control after hours. We have noticed that there are companies that come to the property and dump their trash after they complete their job. So we have seen it. We have install signs that there has been recorded due to the same situation of other people dumping trash in the property.
Do you know what companies you're doing it? Like illegal dumping's
Well, let's not say them on the camera.
well,
Okay.
if you are aware of which companies are doing it, has it been reported to the police?
I think that is more of also a people component.
Yes.
Okay.
We want to tread very lightly on that, but I think it is more of a people component than it is a company component.
Correct.
I understand. Not wanting to say things publicly. It just illegal dumping is I think it's a misdemeanor offense, and if reported to the cops, we can maybe at least get a call going and make some employee who's feeling lazy that day have an uncomfortable conversation with their boss.
I agree. But I just didn't know if it was a person or. I agree though, and I don't think that was fairly answered. So what would the implementation of a recycling program look like? I know all of us recycle. I live in an apartment complex. We have recycle, containers on our property. Is that something that you could be open to and small information campaign on, hey, this is what is recyclable, this is what is not?
Yes.
Absolutely. I don't think we're always open-minded to good ideas, and we think it's a good idea. I think we would work with our maintenance team and our project team on how that would look. I wouldn't want to get too far into an overcommittal, but I do think it's something that we'll be open to.
But, or at least the cardboard, with Amazon and packages, it makes an enormous difference. And if you had a policy that said, please break down your cardboard. It would just save a lot on volume.
Agreed.
Awesome. All right, so let's jump back to the top of this and get into some more detail. Starting with the first question, which was, are there plans to implement a significant interior and exterior improvements to the property? And you all responded with some items. I'll allow you to run through the list, and then we'll, respond with some questions based off of that. So,
Sure. So parking lots have been restripped, fire lanes repainted, trash corrals repaired and stained. If you look in the back of that picture, you'll see that brown gate there. Landscaping improvements, tree removal and trimming throughout the property, and gutter cleaning, repair, and downspout repair, which that also answers a piece to the second question that Ms. Pendel touched on mold. So we are taking a huge opportunity to make things right at the property. We are obviously showing from our financial standpoint that we're engaged in the property, and these are just some things that we basically did in the last year.
okay. So Alderwoman, I'll allow you to go first, and then I'll follow up because I definitely have questions as it relates to the capital improvements plan for 2023.
Why don't you continue, Mr. Chair?
Awesome, thank you. So the capital improvements as it relates to, some of the physical infrastructure, the parking lot, restrip, fire lanes, repainted, trash corral, I think that's fantastic. Landscaping improvements, all very small things. What I do have, not concerned about, but I'd like to expand it on a little, are the apartments in the back still walk-through completely? Are they still open air?
Yeah, the property is kind of open air in general.
Well, but the apartments in the back, I think you can enter from both the back side and the front side, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and so when you say replace building entry/exit doors at all 6 garden-style buildings, is that enclosing the property, or enclosing those main corridors to the front?
It's not enclosing, it's actually making doors with key fobs with additional security to actually get into them. So we're not closing off the back, no.
Okay, and just for clarity, just because I want to be sure here, the 6 garden-style buildings are, because when you drive into the property, it's like townhouses.
Correct.
And then you get to that middle, slash in the circle, and everything turns into apartments. Are that the garden-style buildings?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and so you'll just be installing key fobs at what doors? Because if they're, as far as I know, when you walk up to the entrance to the apartment building right now, there's no door.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry, let me cut you off.
So when you enter to the garden building, so you have 2 doors. So you have the main entrance and the back entrance. So you can access the door either way. So we are trying to implement the key fob system so that way when the tenants come in, they don't have to call because the children and all the family, they punch all the buttons. So we are trying to have a more secure system for them to access to their houses.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure because I didn't know if the entry and exit doors were even a thing at that property. I thought it was just pretty much.
No.
Yeah. Obviously, the key fob is on there. And what's the third quarter date that chosen? Because we just have third quarter here.
We're on the calendar year.
So when would the third quarter start?
Can you speak into the mic, please?
September,
It's starting in July.
July to September.
July, okay. Exterior painting, 80 townhomes, entry doors will be painted. Okay, right now they're all just blue, right? Yeah. Additional speed bump installation. That was interesting to me. Admiral Hooks has 17 speed bumps. What would you need more? When I ride through Admiral Hooks, my first thought, and obviously, again, I'm not the older person, but I'm just, my observation, the parking infrastructure could be improved, not the, infrastructure to slow down speed. There are no parking lots there. You've got tractor trailers, fronts sometimes. You've got work trucks from, every company in the city. What's the plan for parking infrastructure so that there's a better flow of a better flow of traffic, but also, because I know what you're about to say, but also, there are a lot of kids in that community, and I agree, it should be a more walkable community. So can you just expand on that a little more?
Well, clearly you did live there. I think the conversation around the speed bumps was obviously had with Alderwoman Pendel, and us being a good management company, we want to be open-minded to the things that we're asked, right? So there is still people speeding, right? Like, yes, there's 17, and certain people really care about the suspension of their car, and certain people don't, right? So we thought that we can still be open-minded to add an additional speed bumps just to slow down, and really because of what you just touched on, that there are kids there. So if we just make you slow down every 50 feet, then we kind of almost assure ourselves that somebody doesn't get hit. So that was the real reason why we were being very open-minded around the speed bumps based on Ms. Pendel's request.
Alderman, one second, I'm sorry. Alderman Shandemeyer, and then. Yeah.
Put more speed bumps, all of them. Look, as you said, there are kids there. It's a wider parking lot, and you have a wider parking lot, and making that neighborhood walkable, it's a cul-de-sac loop tucked away on a strode with a moat of cars instead of alligators. Like, there's nothing a property management company can really do on that front, but that's serious city infrastructure. But yeah, I like hearing that you guys are putting speed bumps in, because kids play outside, they ride their bikes around, and if you give people an opportunity to go fast, an outlier, as their traffic engineers call it, will go fast. But my thing is, those outliers kill people. So thank you for taking care of that.
Yeah, we're 100% open-minded, and we've invested in it with our engineering and maintenance team. So it's already been discussed. We have the quotes in place, and we're more than prepared to do it.
My only thing is also, I can't imagine that the fire department would be supporting that. But
It's on private property.
Yeah.
oh, okay. And your question?
Yeah, I just want to mention, and I think I put it in the email, when I went over there on Good Friday, I saw at least 3 or 4 cars that were gunning it through there. And the children, because they were out of school, and by that time when I went over there anyway, but they were running through the properties like children normally would do from building to building. My fear was that somebody, and they were anywhere from 4 years old to maybe 10. They were all in elementary school. And I was clearly, afraid that someone was gonna get hit. And when I drive through there or walk through there, if I drive, I go extremely slow. And then you've got that area in between where you can go from, instead of going around the loop, there's a cut through. And so you've got children running through there. So if you're not really paying attention as a driver, truly somebody's gonna get hurt. But I did witness it at Good Friday.
Yeah, we're extremely, we want kids safe. We also understand that the environment we are in during the year, kids want to be able to play safely in that lot. We're not going to be able to stop them from playing there. Right. Every kid cannot go to a camp, and every kid doesn't have the funding to be at the YMCA, right? So we clearly understand that outside, in some cases, is the playground. So we want to make sure that they are safe. And again, we heard you loud and clear on that, as we mentioned in the emails, and we're more than willing to move forward with that.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm the person that's gonna look at it. If someone calls me or tells me that something is going on, not that I don't believe them, but I'm gonna go out there myself and make sure I witness it myself. I'm not gonna come in here and say, what I heard, this is what I saw. And so I just wanna make that clear as well.
And so let's close this one out so we can move on to the next. I also hear from the residents, just on the last thing, you all have a very aggressive tow policy. Is with I don't know how that is affecting residents. Is that something that was discussed in the residential meetings that you all do, the monthly meetings?
Well, so since our new team member, the whole new staff member currently is new. So I'm the former property manager since February of this year. Ms. Jennifer started on April, the whole environment in the property and the community and the office has changed. You can see like we are more open and more transparent with the residents. Yesterday, we held our second resident meeting where we just had planned so many events with our resident, and we are trying to communicate more and be more clear with them. So it was a good feedback from our residents this time.
Awesome, thank you. You said that was yesterday?
That was yesterday, correct?
Awesome, just the 6th, just so I can put that in. Awesome. Okay, so let's go on to the next section, which was how was the property work to improve the mold issues? I think, you know, that was one of the bigger concerns. At least from what I thought I heard was that at least like 50% of the property has some issue with mold. And, you know, and that's from when we did our last meeting, and then they did the one-to-one inspections. And then also, as I just mentioned previously, we had an issue where a tenant was moved from a mold-infested apartment to a mold-infested apartment that wasn't even on the same row. And so that was concerning. So I see you guys just have some things here if you want to kind of expand on that.
Sure. And before we even get into the bullet points, I think on the mold, I think we had city inspectors out in January of last year. I think from the email that we sent last night, we only had 2 open inspection items from all of those inspections.
You had 2 what?
2 open inspection items. One was from Roto-Rooter for plumbing, and another one's from drywall, which we'll handle internally. From that inspection in January, we had contractors come out. We did not have any more issues. I was actually there with the 2 inspectors myself for the final visit. So we did not have any more mold issues. We did not have to move anybody else after that.
So what happened, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what happened between November and January that went from being a severe mold problem on the property where we had it, you know, residents coming in, showing photos, a, you know, campaign on Facebook with mold crawling up the walls, stuff on kids' car seats and all of this stuff. What happened from November to January that there was, you know, just a drastic increase in mold appearances across the property?
Well, I can't completely speak for November, but I'll own December. When we were notified about it, we got additional contractors out there. It was all hands on deck to make sure that we got where we needed to go. I will absolutely own that. I'll say the same thing that I said in reference to the trash cans. I don't want to live in it, and Enterprise doesn't want anybody else to live in it. So we immediately got out there. We had 4 different companies come out there. We went with the inspectors. We walked as senior managers, not just leaving it to the property managers. The president and myself were also there to work through that. So I think it was all hands on deck. Again, I can't speak for previously, but from the times that we've been there, we've gotten solid managers there. I don't want to indict any other staff members that may not currently work for Enterprise anymore. But I think that we took it and we were very vigilant about it and making sure that we remediated it immediately. That's the best answer I can give you for how we did it in 60 days.
Yeah, I guess what we could do as a committee is follow up and.
Could I just ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
I'm curious. Excuse my ignorance, but the units, are they a heat pump system? Or what kind of, I mean, are the condensate units?
They're a heat pump system.
Okay, and the condensate units are outside?
Yes.
Okay. Are they on a pad or anything, or they're just, are they on any sort of pad, or are they just sitting out there?
They're.
Okay. I'm just looking at those, I'm just looking at it from a building perspective and where water can come in, and I saw this for the first time, where these condensate units are and how they're on low ground and how that's, did they determine where the water was coming in? That's what I'm trying to do.
We didn't get a report of exactly from the inspectors of where it was coming from, but we did make sure that we touched on roof lines and gutters. So, because we did see a lot when we were there at the top of the wall. So the air, if it's coming through the HVAC, you're going to see it at the bottom of the wall. So the majority of it we saw was at the top. So that's why we made sure that we touched on all roofs, gutters, and make sure that everything was clean.
Well, we talked about, what's really funny is, not funny, but your roofs are in, I don't know the last time you had roof repair, but your roofs seem pretty good. I don't know how old they are, but so I think we talked about last time that your downspouts just come down, and it would make a big difference if there was some kind of downspout extension. And I don't know if you looked at that at all, to get the water away from the basement. From
That
the
was
house.
part of the recommendation by the inspectors that came out.
Yeah.
So we did extend it to move the
Okay,
water away from
Mayor, that, our inspectors, Mary? Yeah, we tried to get
Yes.
that in the code, yeah. Right.
Well, and that you mentioned that, and we can, because we could combine question 3 with this.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, well, obviously, because it's residential property, I'm assuming that's, or it may not be in a flood risk area where it doesn't require a flood mitigation plan. But from my experience, and obviously I haven't lived there in like 12 years, but just from my experience there and then what I see now, you know, through residents, and particularly on the back loop, I think is that 460, that very, very last building? Or the furthest building in the back, I forget what it is. That's like right next to the maintenance shed.
Yes.
Yeah, so that area floods frequently. You know, even till this day, there are, you know, just serious flood issues there. And then obviously you have those 3 low-level buildings there that face the back. And then also the units on the far left side that are facing the storage facility on the other side are that, you know, because you got to walk back down the stairs to get to, they have, you know, terrible flood and mold issues. And so, you know, obviously once the repairs are made and, you know, and the quarterly inspection comes back up, I'd be curious to see what our planning and zoning department has to say, just if they think, you know, that was enough preventative maintenance.
You can certainly pose that question to them for the next time around.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Absolutely. Just
What I was gonna do, since you touched on that, is to ask Enterprise to come back in 3 months in September, if that works for Mr. Chair, your committee, to come back with any updates.
yeah. So what we'll do is, I mean, let's get through this first, but
Right.
what we'll do is we can stay in touch and we'll either have them come back or we can just say, what I'd really like is if we could do maybe so let's get through this first and then we'll talk about next steps. Okay.
Could you just make a note that, I just want to confirm that the condensate units are on a 4-inch pad?
Okay, yeah, so let's,
It just make me feel better. They're just not stuck.
I have a
Because they sweat, you know, they sweat. It's condensate unit, so it goes into the ground.
Alderman Shandelmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So quick question on the units that were experiencing mold issues. Are each of your housing units air conditioned?
Yes.
This is possibly a silly question, possibly not. I rented a house for a little bit that had mold issues in one room because it didn't have a cold air intake. So basically just brought in wet, cold air and it stayed in there. Do they all have that in there too? I don't know when your units were built, if that was in. Okay.
Yes, I do.
All right. Hello.
I have a question based on your question.
Absolutely. Good.
My understanding is too, from what I saw in the 2 units I was in, that the ventilation within the bathroom, say taking a shower, that aggravates mold and that's problematic. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're correct.
That seemed to be a good source, a large source of the mold. The ventilation as far as the bathroom and the shower.
Correct, because you want the fans are supposed to pull it out.
Right.
So the fans always need to be working. We do have our maintenance staff obviously looking at those all the time. When we do our regular inspections, or obviously if a tenant reports it. But you are correct that fan is to pull all of the condensation out so it doesn't go against the walls.
So how can that be corrected? I'm not a contractor, so.
So when they actually fix the fan, when you turn it on, there's a fan that pulls out. So just making sure that fan motor is always working, that we are obviously vigilant in our inspection of the units, and then obviously being very transparent with the tenants that if it's not working, to make sure that you call us also.
So what I'm assuming is that there are a lot of tenants who aren't calling you. And that's why there seems to be a lot of mold in the bathroom area.
I don't want to indict our
Right.
tenants, so I would not say that they're just not calling. I would say that we are vigilant in being and getting to the units and doing our property inspections 2 and 3 times a year. We would like, of course, for tenants to call immediately if it is broke, but at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to get into the unit.
That might be something you want to add to the newsletter perpetually.
Okay.
Very much. Fair.
We also have sent out letters regarding the maintenance issue, so to every single tenant. We have described every single, stuff that can be an emergency for them to communicate to the office immediately once they see any of that stuff on their house. I can share that letter with you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great if we could.
Yes.
Yeah, if you could just share that with us, because you did share the newsletter too, and I'll get to that later, but if you could share that letter as well. So let's move on to the next thing, because we're kind of merging into that discussion as well, which was, does the property have a deferred maintenance lift? If so, can you provide an estimated time of completion? One of the things that we also discussed at the November, or not at the November meeting with you all, but that we had with, where we provided public testimony, there was concern about, hey, if I'm calling the property management, there was no transparency on how, a maintenance ticket was filed or whatever. I think at the meeting that you all did attend, though, in November, there was discussion of maybe changing to a electronic system where, they could file a maintenance slip online and track the progress. So let's just jump into that. First, how many maintenance members, I don't want to say men because women can be, how many maintenance members do you have on the team?
So currently we are full staff, so we come with us maintenance supervisor, a maintenance tech, and a porter.
Okay, so 3.
Yes.
For 159 units?
Yes.
They say that's standard in the industry. When we were here, was it what was the?
1 per 100.
1 per 100, yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
you.
So that is pretty standard, but it just seems significantly like too much work for one maintenance person to, maintain 159 units.
There's 2 maintenance people.
So
There's a maintenance supervisor, a maintenance technician who's a junior to the supervisor.
Okay.
And then there's the porter who does light maintenance and groundskeeping.
Okay, so essentially 3.
Yeah. So the maintenance supervisor does work orders.
Yes.
Amrokes, and of course.
Yeah, my understanding is that you only had one, and that was split between the Bates properties. It's up until recently. Is that correct or not?
Yes.
That's what I
Yes,
thought.
that was the situation several months ago.
So you only had a half a maintenance person?
Yeah,
really?
and we had temporary service on the property, but I think you all can appreciate that recruiting is really difficult, especially in the trades right now. So we are fully staffed, and we've got a good group
Good.
on site
That's
now.
good to hear. Thank you.
What, it also says here, Admiral Oaks went from having an average of 60 work orders down to 12. I'm assuming that's just because what we heard from Alderwoman Pendle Charles, you went from a half a maintenance person to 3. And so, there's, an opportunity to get much of the work done. So is the electronic system up and running? If I'm a tenant, and I live at Admiral Oaks, how am I filing a maintenance slip?
Well, usually we have a resident portal, so where they log in and pull the work orders. They can see the comments made by the maintenance supervisor, the maintenance tech, go and check their unit. So it's an open ticket that everyone can log in and see the process of the work order.
Awesome. And so, if you put in a note or whatever, or you say, hey, we were at the house.
Correct. You will see if you log in back to your resident portal, you will see that note that I left on your ticket.
Awesome. And typical time, obviously, if it's an emergency, I think it's like 48 hours.
Correct.
Anything else afterwards, you're just trying to, follow up on. What is the company preventative maintenance program that was just installed or that was just started to stay on top of plumbing leaks, unit inspections, and filters changes?
We're actually going around quarterly. We have our own department of maintenance, a head of our department of maintenance who does walks. We have regional engineers who also have a region. So, and they obviously oversee some of the maintenance also. So we have a full plan that encompasses these things that you see on the list and trying to make sure that we see them quarterly. So if we have to make any CapEx adjustments while we're building our capital budget, that we get them done. Or if it's an immediate need, just do it while we're there, actually.
Do you know, in this, I probably should have asked this earlier, what is the operating budget for the property?
We will have to send that over.
Okay,
That's not
no
something
problem.
we brought.
Yeah.
We'll send that over in the next 48 hours.
I'm curious to see that, and I also should have asked numbers in regards to, is the property do you do subsidized units as well, or? Okay, can we have maybe a breakdown on? Sure. Okay, awesome, that'd be fantastic.
We will obviously just give the unit, no names.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely,
All right.
yeah. Any other questions on this section, maintenance, deferred maintenance, from Alderman Schandelmeyer?
I just want to state, I think your cut down of maintenance calls is pretty impressive, from 60 to 12. That shows a lot of proactive work that's being done. A little bit later, we're going to be getting with issues with communication, bilingual, et cetera. That's always been a barrier in apartment complexes, I understand. And we can maybe brainstorm on ways to expand it, ways to solve it and increase it. But I think this is a really significant win for you guys and improvement. And we appreciate that work and proactive nature.
Thank you.
And I'm glad, I'll be the pessimist and I'll say, we'll see in July when the third quarter starts and you start to put in these capital dollars. That's what will make me happy.
Oh, ye of little faith, okay? we like being here, but we don't want to come back too often.
No, but I think, look, when you start to make the physical improvements to the property, that's when residents feel good, and that's when the property managers can feel good as well, because you're running a 5-star property, and I think that's the expectation of us, and obviously it's your expectation as well. And so let's move on to the next section. Oh, we already did the trash. My question number 6 was, are all units currently licensed? The rental license, yes, all rental licenses are issued or were issued as of February 9th, so they're definitely up to date there, which is good. And I know you probably looked at that question like, why would they assume
That's
that?
an improvement,
We have some properties where it's not licensed, and so that's good to know. Question number 7, are there plans to improve outdoor recreational space? You said you applied for the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development grant to refurbish both playgrounds, pending receipt of the funds. And just for clarity, for those that don't know, obviously they have the playground in the middle of the property, the playground in the back of the property. So my question then is just a rough description of what that project may look like. And then also, are you still in a negotiation with Boys and Girls Club, or is that non-existent, or?
Yeah, so the Boys and Girls Club is still on site, but it services a very small population at this point. So Niso, who's in the audience, is our Vice President of Resident Services. He and I have been talking about next steps for the space in the community, and that's been a discussion in resident meetings recently, is what the residents want to see happen there. So we don't have a firm resolution to next steps for that space yet.
Yeah.
But it's an ongoing question for us.
That's good. So just before you get to the second part, let me just do this because I always have to advocate. Love the Boys and Girls Club. I'm a product of the Boys and Girls Club. Like I said, I moved from Baltimore to Annapolis, didn't know anybody really, and had a bunch of family issues going on. The Boys and Girls Club was a savior for me in that community, in Admiral Oaks. And this was before you built that front facility. This was when it was in literally apartments. There was one on the basement apartment in one building, and then the computer lab was in another. And so it is special. Mentorship is important, and particularly because we're servicing low-income communities, where there is a need for, after-school programming, accessible recreational space. And so I'll just, throw that slight promotion and for the club, but regardless of what you do with the space, I would just hope that it could be accessible and providing, you know, the needed community service and community character programs. And then also, could you just expand on the program descriptions?
Yeah, we're just looking to refresh the equipment on there, mulching, actual playground items. It kind of touches a little bit. We talked about the speed bumps, and we have a huge understanding that this is a huge piece of recreation for kids at this property. Not everybody has a gym membership, so we want to make sure that they have something good and they can be proud of to play with and safe.
Alderman?
Do you have a idea of the timeline for the DHCD grant?
They said by the end of the year. Some things move a little bit slower in our governments than others, but we're working with them diligently. I do not want to completely commit to a timeline until we actually have money in hand.
That makes sense to me. Thank you.
And then also just to throw out, obviously, if you probably had to fill out a grant application, it may be tough to throw anything on, but if the company maybe have capital dollars, what recreational improvements before the teens? Because, you know, playgrounds are obviously school-age kids, but if you know, you have a property like yours with so many children, are there, you know, is there additional space for, you know, a small half a basketball court or something like that to, has that been discussed or?
We would have to investigate that and come back. That is not something that we've discussed.
Yeah, there's not a lot of extra space in this community, as you know, and that's part of the discussion about the use of the Boys and Girls Club space in the clubhouse right now, because that, again, it serves only a few kids and it's a very targeted population. And we know we have other groups on the property that need resident services, and you know, so we're thinking of all of the different ways we could use that space. And teens are definitely part of that.
Awesome, I appreciate that. Alderwoman, anything on this section or?
No, I've seen the space and it is small, and also a basketball court, even one hoop, I mean, I think would be problematic over there, but there's gotta be something maybe that you all can investigate to see what may be out there in other parts of our country, how they kind of acclimate the space and what they've used it for. But probably the best thing is just asking the residents what they believe, and the teens as well, what they think. I mean, you might want to have a little teen event there every so often, and also maybe even have a teen advisory board.
And then on our last resident service meeting that was yesterday, so we have 3 events planned for our children on the property on the next 3 days. So we're gonna have a midday movie day using the Boys and Girls Club. We will do a social ice cream day, and we will do like a free sign off for internet for them. So we are trying to utilize on their day off some space in the Boys and Girls Club that we can also join with our children in the property.
Fantastic.
Okay, that's great. And feel free to invite me.
Yes, you're welcome.
I like to see things.
You're welcome.
Alderwoman Tierney, any questions or?
No, I was just thinking about a movie night, but that's.
We could put, listen, the alderman was just saying, they do have that awkward strip that's dead smack in the middle of the community. And I mean, the police department, I think they have the infrastructure for the movie screens and stuff, and so.
Not there. I've asked Sergeant Becker.
Okay.
The best we can do is, because we've had it the past couple of years at Annapolis Gardens, they have a big space right there where the office is, to kind of invite and encourage the Alma Oaks community to come over there, because it's right next door. It's just a small walk. So that, I talked to Sergeant Becker about it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll close out the conversation on recreational space. And let me just tell you, the residents are, we will have to follow up on some of this stuff via, you know, we'll talk offline, definitely, because everybody has rebuttals. But, all right, so regarding the property management and communication, and we're gonna get through this very quickly, these last few. Do you know if it's a monthly newsletter? Yes, you sent us a monthly newsletter to June 1. I thought it was great.
So is that, I'm sorry, is that,
No, please.
because you have a high population Latino, is it?
Yes, our community is based, I will say, 90% of Latino. So
Yeah.
right now, the staff that is there, we both are fluent in Spanish, so the communication has gotten better with our residents.
So your newsletter is in?
Yes, we're going to have.
We do them both in Spanish and English, so
You do
like even,
both?
yes.
Yeah, okay. Could we talk about the newsletter?
Absolutely.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but this is from, and I got a newsletter from another housing development, and it was set up so that it talked about, progress of something, like you could talk about the progress of your playgrounds and all. But then it really reiterated, again, the house rules, a reiteration of the house rules. And I just think that's really important, just so things don't get out of hand. The issue with this complex was loitering. So, and it had a good statement in here, which I thought was, who heads of household, a resident liability, this is in their house rules. Heads of household shall be responsible for the conduct and actions of household members and their guests, and will be liable for their actions. In order to ensure the safety of all household members and guests, we ask heads of households to explain these guidelines to household members and guests. I just thought it was just, that's important stuff to remind your tenants of the importance of following the house rules, if you will. I'll do them in.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. No, that was one of the things that was discussed at the meeting, I think back in the fall. And housekeeping also was another issue that was brought out as well. But putting that perpetually in the newsletter, I think, works well. And I'm not trying to be competitive here, but Annapolis Gardens has a really, really nice newsletter. And I'm going to give them a shout out because Mr. Noah over there hand delivers every last one of them. And the residents are thrilled to get it hand delivered, especially the seniors. So I'm not trying to put any pressure on you, but I'm just saying the community next door has really beefed up their newsletter distribution.
Well, we don't like losing, so we'll make sure that we beat them.
Well, if you're going to say that, I'll do a plug for Woodside Gardens. You have to keep them short so people will read them, have some pictures.
Exactly. And the other thing, just a suggestion, getting input from residents to see what they want to see in the newsletter. And maybe have a resident or two write a column themselves.
That was a conversation that we have yesterday with them. They were really happy about sharing information, recipe with us. So that's something that we're gonna get together with our residents to share information with our residents.
Good. And that should even cut down on your complaints.
Yeah.
Because if it's, brought out in the newsletter or they feel like they have a voice through the newsletter, more than likely the complaints will lessen.
Do you have in-person meetings at all? Or,
Yeah, had one yesterday, I think.
Yes, we have one yesterday.
They scheduled?
They just started.
Just started them, okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, because she was brought on in January, and Jennifer was brought on in April. So
Those must try your patience.
So just before we move on to the next, I'm also plug social media. I think that's a huge way for properties to be in constant communication with tenants over the weekend, etc. Crimes are on the rise, and you want to be able to just communicate consistently with your residents. Obviously, question number 9, residents was concerned regarding access to translation services. Has the property taken action? Yes. It's like 2 bilingual. One bilingual property manager and a bilingual assistant property manager, which is great. The 2 full-time bilingual associates can communicate with Latino demographic. Their community is 84% Latino, and so definitely changing demographics, because when I was there, it was like 85% African American, and so that's the story of our city, though, and so we'll move forward from there. I'll discuss that with you offline, Mr. C, right? But yeah, so let's move off from there. Residents voiced concern about a lack of transparent and consistent communication from property management. Has the property management taken action to provide training? Obviously, I think we can agree there. But you know, obviously there were some concerns from the alderwoman in regards to, you know, property management, relations, et cetera. And so I think that's something that you all will have an opportunity to improve offline. I don't want to put any pressure on them here today, but I would, you know, obviously the alderwoman has been here for quite some time in her capacity. She knows the community well. She has great respect in the parole area. And so, you know, we take her concerns seriously. That's why we had this meeting. And so I hope that not only with her, but that with the residents, there's transparency and better communication. You know, I do have, you know, tenants that are on the property that have emailed us about, hey, I've reached out about this concern, and you know, obviously this would have had to been the previous property manager because you just got here, but if had, you know, been dismissive or has not responded, or the office has been open on, or days or hours when they said they would be open, and so that creates problems, you know, and so I trust, obviously, just from the leadership here today, that will be addressed.
And I think we'll take 1 minute. We have obviously the dedicated answer that we gave, but I think we can take 2 minutes to talk through it. Gail, obviously, as the president of this organization, has expressed to her leadership, which means my team, right? So we will not lack customer service. I think from every email that we've started about this, we've been trying to be transparent as possible, and talking to everybody and saying, let's make sure that we can have conversations, right? As Gail stated, it's great to do this, but I think there's a lot done when we can just pick up the phone and call each other, and it gets done immediately. So that is our push. That is our mandate, that our doors are open at the property. I think everybody here and everybody that's been on those emails has my phone number and everything else. So we're adamant about it. We're adamant about the customer service. We do feel as though that we have improved in the last few months. As Ms. Pendel and I have talked about, there's still work to do. We're not going to come in here and say that everything is perfect, but we're marching down that road. So transparency, making sure that we listened, to have a property be 84% and not have anybody that can actually just speak, you know, doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So we've obviously listened. Some of it was easy to listen to. I mean, the data speaks for itself. And I think we've made those level of changes. So just wanted to take 1 minute to kind of talk through question 10, just so we have that on the record. But for us, transparency, open-endedness, and actually being able to talk to one another is very important to the leadership.
That's great, because last November, from my notes, that was the biggest, that was the biggest thing I thought was that issue, other than, you know, mold issue. So that's great that you've really focused on that. Thank you.
I agree. Obviously, I have not been in constant contact with, you know, constituents from that community outside of email, so I don't.
Did they know about this meeting?
Of course, but
So
we
the fact that they're
didn't
not here.
advertise for public testimony, so
Yeah.
that's the difference.
But
Yeah.
even so.
Yeah, of course. But you know, but my thing is,
Right.
and I think we will have an opportunity to follow up. You know, I don't want to.
I know.
Yeah, because look,
I know.
Yeah. I don't
I
want to
know.
just leave
Still
this
an
meeting,
issue.
you know,
Yeah,
and saying like,
everything's
everything is,
hunky-dory.
yeah, exactly, and
No,
then.
I'm just acknowledging
Yeah.
the effort.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I think that is to be commended. And Alderwoman, I hope that you all are able to follow up and, you know, touch bases, and so that, you know, amends can be made. Definitely.
Certainly. I mean, I'm willing to work with them. My thing is accountability, and I have to respond to the residents, and I think they know that, and I've been over there enough times and talked to enough within the management office as well as residents. And I will say this, like I said before, I'm not taking every resident's word for it unless I see it for myself. And there was a situation recently where I had to get a resident straight because I knew what the resident was saying was not true. And so I make sure that I'm vigilant in doing that. The one thing I'm going to mention, and I don't want you all to even talk about it, but this is perpetually when it comes to rental properties, not talking about Admiral Oaks at all. There's always a hint, but not with you all, I'm not going to say that, of retaliation. as far as people complaining about a situation, fearful of going to the office to make a complaint and that sort of thing. That perpetually comes up on a general scope. But I just want to put it out there on the record that within all the properties that we have in the city, that none of that occurs because the fear factor is huge. So just want to throw it out there, and I don't need for you to respond because I'm not talking about any particular properties. But I think it's always worth noting that for some residents is a feeling that they may think that that's what's going on. But we'll leave it at that, and that's it.
Alderman Shandemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When it comes to increasing communication, I think I ended up on you guys' email newsletter just after our first meeting with everyone, and then I've gotten individual, more personalized to the committee updates on the work and property updates that you guys have been doing. So I really appreciate that. I think there's been a lot of great improvements, and we just got to continue to lift up the standards for folks in our city, and y'all are being a part of that, so thank you.
With that, let's move on to question 11, which we'll actually just skip over because they've discussed. The question was, has a tenant residence council been established? If so, have they had the opportunity to meet? They're brand new, so they haven't had a chance to, Madam.
Yeah, and I think that lessens complaints as well. When you have the residents have the ability to come out for a meeting and to air whatever grievance or good things that's going on, I think it works both ways. So I think that's an opportunity, because I had talked to someone, not your management company, several years ago, and they looked at me like I had 3 heads when I mentioned it. And it's like, no. But I'm glad you all are open to that. So that's definitely progress.
I'm going to make a request of you, if you don't mind. This needs to come from the residents. We need residents to step forward to serve. And that's often a difficult thing, right? We can enable and educate, but we can't make someone form a council. And we do embrace this across our portfolio. So if you are speaking to some of the Admiral Oaks residents, I would really encourage you to encourage them to step up.
And resident councils will look different in every community. You may only get 2 or 3, but that's a starting point. And oftentimes when people see change and things happening, then others will join. And it may not be a situation where you have to have a meeting every month. It just may be 2 or 3 people who filter complaints or whatever. So it may look different. Well, it will look different in different communities. And starting off, because you've never had one and the community's been there for many years, it's going to be difficult to start one. But it's like the PTA in the school system. What you see in Severna Park is not going to be what you see maybe in Eastport Elementary School.
Our resident services team has a guide to help our residents come together to form a resident council, so they won't be alone in this effort if they choose to step up.
And with the property needs is, and I'm sure it has it, but with, obviously when I think of resident services, I'm thinking, I think of like tenants like Rita Washington, Donna Johnson, where we know this community, we've been here, we know the residents, and we're prepared. I know there has to be somebody in Emerald Oaks like that. I know a couple of families that have been there since I've been, gone. And so I know people would be definitely invested in that.
Certainly.
So let's go on to the final 3 questions, which I thought were fantastic questions from our housing affordability specialist. And this is interesting to me because I didn't realize that re-syndication was coming up. And, that's something I think we've had properties that in the past that are like, of course we're going to reinvest in the property, and then they're up and gone. And so let's start with number 1. Has a comprehensive needs assessment been conducted for the property? Obviously, you're saying that this will be in line with the re-syndication deadline, which is 12/25. Are there adequately funded reserves for replacement accounts that can be used to address capital repairs? Your response was, reserves for replacement accounts are funded at levels about to Maryland's Department of Housing and Community Development required levels, with a current balance of $143,100. The amounts will be utilized to fund current and anticipated replacements. Is that what you were talking about in question 1, where you're talking about parking lot restrips, fire lanes, trash garage? Okay.
Yes.
And will that also be in the third quarter, or is that something that's already underway? In regards to like the gutter and downspout repair, the general landscape improvement, trash corral?
Those have already
Those have
been
been
completed.
completed.
Oh, okay,
So
completed.
anything now is additional funds with the 143 that we have.
Okay, okay. Awesome, all right. And then obviously you said that you all anticipate re-syndication in 2026, but that's, obviously things can change over the next couple of years. Any other questions on this?
No, sir.
No, it's like Denise knows what she's asking there.
Yeah, and I think we can, I do have a list of follow-ups, and we can definitely, and I'm sure everyone else here may have some follow-up questions that we can circle back on. We'll obviously be in touch. I think what next steps, the Alderwoman would like to meet in, you said 90 days or 60 days?
90, I think that would be good. Once we get into the fall season, see where we were during the summer, what
Absolutely.
progress especially might have been made with the Boys and Girls Club. That's significant as well. The newsletters, maybe some progress with the resident council, those kinds of things, I think within 90 days, some sort of progress I'm gonna anticipate can be made.
I think we're absolutely open. Obviously, 90 days we'll be here, I think, but every 30 days I will talk to my staff and make sure we send an update to everybody so we keep that conversation going. I think communication is the key. So we'll send you a copy of the newsletter when it comes out, but we'll also send where we are and things that we have gotten done or things that we may have not gotten done. And any questions that this body has, if you want to send it to us within that 30 days, it just keeps that communication going.
I do have a question. Those residents that have been moved, say to a hotel in the interim, do you all engage or have any information concerning bus transportation? Does that come back to you, or that's something you all don't get involved in?
We have not gotten into that so far. That is definitely something that we can talk about offline.
Well, and that's why we had that legislation.
Yes.
Because I think that is something that definitely needs to be, everything doesn't need to be, added or passed through a bill, but certain things do. And particularly when you're talking about a child's education, financial financial reallocations, those all things have to be legislated on, and particularly if you're gone from a property for a week, there has to be some sort of transportation stipend, I feel, just so that, if you're serving low-income communities, not everybody has a car, and so now if I'm moving off of Admiral Drive, where I'm right next to West Street and have access to, all of the stores and the work, and I'm all the way over Riva, that's a $30 cab at 7 o'clock, and it's probably a $15 cab from 12 to 4 or whatever. And so all of those things can be addressed. I will definitely follow up on some of the things that I had. Any other closing questions before we let the enterprise group go?
I have a random one. Is there any appetite for or space volunteered for a community garden? Some sort of communal effort, if you will.
No, but we are trying to implement that with our residents.
I think that would be good.
Ms. Lavi, what did you say again? I'm sorry.
I said no, but we are trying to implement that with our residents as well.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Alderwoman.
I mean, not all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we're all good then. I'm sorry, Alderwoman.
Two things. First of all, I'd like to thank the Enterprise team for coming in again and for providing updates that are extremely encouraging. I'm really encouraged by what's going on and what has been happening in the past few months. Second, I'd like to thank the Housing and Human Welfare Standing Committee and Mr. Chair, as well as your members, for indulging me and having them come before you all and being very participatory in the process, because I know it means a lot. With your expertise, Alderwoman Tierney was with Whiting and Turner, and she's a construction person, so that's extremely important. And Alderman Gay has been in the community and lived there, and Alderman Shandelmeyer has always got great in-depth questions, especially about transportation, so.
Careful, he'll rip up your parking lot.
But anyway, so I thank them all, but if there's anything that I can do at any time, because the last thing I want is you all to come back and say, well, we couldn't get any help, or no, well, maybe I can provide some small bit of help for that. So anytime, just ask me. If there's something I see, I'll let you know. If it's something you see, just let me know, and together I think we can move on in a positive direction. I'm very encouraged.
All right, so we've got recycling.
Give my regards to Ms. Princess.
Absolutely.
We've got the recycling program. These are the follow-ups. Recycling program, the AC units or the HVAC units on 4-inch pads or higher.
Just to check them.
The concern of flooding in the back units. The community garden now, that was just added from Alderwoman Tierney. The capital budget. And that's it.
The newsletter,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, and the newsletter.
You asked me something in
And the
reference to the
resident-
units that you wanted to know. You wanted to know about the subsidized units?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yeah, and the percentage of, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
the resident council, and also B&G Club. Okay, I did. Yeah, the operating budget, and the breakdown on the subsidized housing units.
Yep, perfect. All right, you all are free to go.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Thank you
We
so much.
appreciate it.
Be safe.
Last names and titles.
Before you go, just state your name, we need it for the record, sorry.
Names and titles?
No, I prefer to get it after, so I just don't want them to leave yet, so that I can write it down.
Or just come see the clerk before you leave, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so that's closes
The need didn't want to come forward. That's okay.
That closes out ID 8923. Unless there are any other questions, that completes our agenda.
All right.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good meeting.